Excellent. All right. Got our slides up. So first speaker after lunch, people are a little tired. And there's been, it was a marching band. There was a lot of excitement in the morning. I think we're just going to go straight from a technology conference into some code review and maybe answering some support tickets together to really feel some entrepreneurship. No. It's a technology conference. Everybody probably knows what the internet is. How many people interact with things in their life? Like you touch stuff, you have things, you have a door, maybe. So we're in the Internet of Things space, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means for SmartThings on really kind of two tracks. One is, what is SmartThings the product? How do consumers interact with an experience that we've created to make their homes into a smart home, to bring some of that convenience, joy, fun, security, peace of mind that the Internet of Things and the connected world can bring. And then also SmartThings, a platform, which, because this is an entrepreneurial conference, our platform is around enabling other entrepreneurs, other device makers, other developers, other innovators to help solve problems that the connected home, connected world can solve. So we'll talk a little bit about both of those. So any good founding story, pretty much every founding story, I think starts with a cabin in the woods and a crying infant. I'm pretty positive Facebook started that way, despite what the movie might have led you to believe. So this is a cabin in Leadville, Colorado. It's my co-founder Alex's cabin, and so he was out there. This is the winter of 2011. He's out there with the family in tow, including a newborn, ready to have the good holiday vacation, hit some skiing in Colorado. And he gets up to the house and looks and sees that the door is basically frozen shut. He's got to chip it open to try to get into the house. The baby's screaming. It's not warm at 14,000 feet, as it turns out. And what's happened is the power has gone out. It's electrical power, electrical heat. The power's gone out, the heat goes out, pipes freeze, the power comes back on, the heat comes on, the pipes burst, and they've been running for something like 6 weeks since the last time that they visited the cabin, and which means the entire house is destroyed. Mold, mildew, everything is ruined, and he's sitting there in this house and thinking, here I am, it's 2011, my daughter has got a Kindle and an iPad, and she's streaming a video and watching Netflix. And I've got my iPhone here, and I know what my neighbor's kid had for breakfast back on the East Coast because of Twitter and Facebook. And here, this massive asset, the home, had no voice. It had no ability to say, hey, something's wrong here. There's a problem, and so that it could call for help. And so that started us down a path, kind of good natural allergic reactions to problems for entrepreneurs are solving a problem. So we started looking at, well, what's out there? It's a really simple kind of connected, always on, mobile phone friendly device to know that your second house was basically freezing and the pipes were going to burst and there was moisture everywhere and it was going to be a huge, huge problem. And so we did a bunch of research and found a bunch of ugly solutions, ugly devices, and I apologize if whoever made this is actually in this room. That would be super awkward. But ugly devices with difficult to understand mobile experiences, hard to set up, hard to configure, and said there's got to be a better way. It's 2011. There's got to be a better way to give your home a voice. And so we did what any good entrepreneur will do. We went and if you look on the top, we made our own really ugly device as a result of that. We said we can build something just as ugly, maybe a little bit more wiry. No, there's a few things, takeaways that I would throw out here from what does it mean to be a good entrepreneur. One is don't be afraid. So we'd never built hardware before. We're software people. We're cloud software people as our background. And so we had never built hardware before, but we said, we're not going to be afraid. We will figure this out. We will get experts. We will bring those experts into our team, and we can build some of these connected components that will make this actually work. In the lower left-hand corner, that's actually half of Alex's face. He didn't know he was going to be on here, but there he is. If you're a startup and you don't have to sit on a floor at some point because you don't have furniture, you're also doing it wrong. That's one of the steps. And then lastly, take these pictures, take the picture when you sign your founding docs, and drink some good scotch. That's the other way to ensure that you're going to have a good time as a startup. So we did that, and 11 months later, we went from from that ugly little device at the top to this pallet of finished product in our warehouse in 11 months. And we did that because we said, you know what, we're not going to be afraid. We're not going to be scared. We're going to be able to do this. And my wife forbids me from saying, we birthed this product, I think for a few reasons. She thinks it's a terrible analogy. I was getting a calzone when my daughter was actually born, so I technically don't know, and not a good father, things like that. But we created something, and creation feels amazing. It feels fantastic. It's one of the reasons that drives entrepreneurs. My brother is a stonemason, so he creates every day with his hands, and he has always given me so much heartache about being kind of in software. He's like, well, you don't ever build anything. You don't ever actually create anything. And I'm not terribly handy, it's true. I just recently learned that the 6-sided wrenches that I called hex wrenches, those are actually called Allen wrenches, as it turns out. So, but I took this box and I said, here, I created, here's a thing that you can hold, Brother Josh, and I can be proud of. And you remember how I said, I think last slide, it was just last slide, I said, don't be afraid. When you actually physically build a product, be very afraid. Be actually terrified, because once it's in that box, here's what's going to happen to you. You're going to discover two interesting converging events that make for some fun. Number one, you forgot 3 solder points in a really important point on some of the hardware, and I'll come back to that in a second. It's actually where the power goes in. And number two, you made a really interesting decision, because originally you thought you were going to have some battery backup, and you're like, we're going to save power by having the LED light that usually would indicate that a device like this is on. We're going to choose the kind of universally opposite description of on by having it flash red twice and then go dark as it's healthy strategy. So when you actually combine those two, you plug it in and it flashes red twice and then it goes dark. Most people, that's kind of a universal signal of something's wrong. So I'm going to jiggle that a little bit. And so remember the solder points that were on the power. When you jiggle and there's no solder, you lose power and it breaks. So literally after this, and then startups are like this. You have these ups and then you have these downs. Literally we had to go back into this warehouse, take all these boxes apart, take every single product out of there, open it up, sit up in our warehouse, and our warehouse partners were fantastic partners to let us do this, basically set up an assembly line of a bunch of soldering irons and fix 1,000 plus of these devices before they went out the door. But that's what you learn, and that's how you learn in starting a new company. And you're going to have those events. So as we were building SmartThings, we were building these end devices that connected to the home. We were building a cloud platform. We were building a mobile experience. We were also building a vision for SmartThings, the product, but also SmartThings, the platform. And I'll talk a little bit more about both. So this says easy, open, and intelligent. In our first pitches to VCs, we had this said hard, dumb, and closed. And it turns out those are less compelling statements about what you're trying to build. So easy, open, and intelligent. For us, easy means we had to solve problems like knowing if your home is being flooded in a few minutes, that anybody could do that with a little bit of time and a little bit of energy, and that it would be beautiful in their hand as a result. Intelligent for us means that the magic that's going to happen in the connected home and in the connected world is going to happen in the space between devices. It won't be a super smart appliance. It's not going to be a super smart thermostat. It's going to be how they all work together, and that intelligence should live in the cloud. And open means that we're open. We want people to build on top of us. We want people to innovate beyond us. We want people to solve problems that we haven't thought about solving on the platform. And hopefully that'll resonate. So being easy for us was also to recognize that everybody's home is different, and so you have to start with the most basic experience for a consumer. You have to start with a blank slate and then guide them through what it means to create a smart home for them, because everybody's smart home is very different. And that was really important and a big thing we learned, that some people think in terms of things, these devices they want to connect, and then they think about what will they do with them. And some people think about, I just want to get alerted if there's moisture in my basement so that my family albums don't get ruined. And some people think about, I'd love my lights to turn off when I leave. And everybody's different, and the amount and range of difference is overwhelming. I have pets. That means security is very different for me because I've got big dogs than it might mean for somebody else. We were amazed to find a bunch of people actually just wanted to put sensors on their dog food canisters because they were double feeding their dog, because they didn't remember who actually fed the dog. And that use case just emerged at the top. We're like, wow, everybody is so unique. Everybody is so, every home is so personalized that we built an experience that helps customers start with that blank slate and put their own personality into what is a smart or what is a connected home mean to them. And the other thing that you have to be as an entrepreneur is a gratuitous self-promoter. I think we talked about this in some of the earlier ones. So we think we're doing a good job. I wouldn't be surprised if Maria Thomas, who runs our consumer business, is watching. So this is for Maria. Go to smartthings.com, put your email address in, let us tell you about the product. There, I've done my shameless plug. But we're doing a good job of helping consumers realize, what does it mean to have a smart home in the palm of their hand? And at the same time that we're focused on the home as SmartThings, the product right now, we have this SmartThings, the platform, where innovation can happen. And the challenge I would put to anybody out there in the audience today who's thinking about being an entrepreneur, anybody who's thinking about the Internet of Things and how they could potentially enter and solve problems, is to think across, and I've thrown 6 up here, 6 areas of interesting innovation to us that are ripe for disruption, are ripe for change, whole industries that are ripe for being flipped on their end because of what the connected world can mean. So we'll talk through a couple of those. So if you think about home security, you're seeing brand new devices emerge all the time. Piper was just purchased by a company called iControl. Dropcam just released some really interesting things around human recognition, and they're coming out with some new motion sensors. Canary is an interesting device. If you think about the home security space, though, it's a $30 billion a year industry targeting about 16% of households today with a security system, right? So 16% of households have a security system, something like 80% if you query people. If you say to people, hey, do you want to have a secure home? Pretty much everybody's going to say, yeah, I'd like to have a more secure home. And so this is one of those industries that is absolutely ripe for disruption. And I don't know what the angle will be of disruption, but rest assured, if you think about the old security system with a wall-mounted panel, right, and hardwired devices that goes back to a centralized monitoring station, we would argue that that's going to look in a couple of years very similar to, you know, what a mounted Garmin GPS system might look like today. You have a GPS system now in your hand. It's your smartphone. Map and GPS is now a subset of that capability. And we think there are going to be different forms of security that become subsets of a connected home and a connected world. And that might be simple things like, hey, you know what? My brother lives down the street. And you can just tell him, and he can at least drive by and see if everything's okay in a security event, and he can call the cops. Or maybe it's community-based, where if there's an event at one home, the rest of the lights turn on, and all the different porch lights turn on. I don't know, but this is an area that's absolutely ripe for innovation in this space, and where a $30 billion industry is going to get turned on its head because people are going to say, you know what, I have the perfect console, it's my smartphone, I don't need to be paying you $50 a month for this service, and so something new will emerge. So what are some other ones? Safety and risk management. So this is kind of, if security is about a nefarious force, something external, intentionally causing you harm, there's a lot of risks, and water damage is a great example of that, that exist in our life. And I think Eric was the one who pointed out something about the number of children who, I actually grabbed a stat, 300 children a day go to the ER because of poisoning. And you can think of all of the different ways that we can effectively eliminate all preventable loss of life and property. So how do I know if that kid how do I prevent that kid from getting into those poisonous chemicals? How do I know that that chemical cabinet opened before the kid can actually get into it? How do I know that that gun case was jostled before a child is playing with something dangerous? And I know that I'm in Omaha, and so this is, talking about disruption of an industry like insurance is maybe going to get me snuffed later tonight, but this is another one of those massive industries where information and lack of information ties to what it costs. They have to cover risk. Risk is defined by a lack of information around what's going to happen in the home with premiums. And as we get more and more perfect information about the home, we know when that moisture event's going to happen. And by the way, now we've got a $70 water shutoff valve that can shut off the water so that it's not running and ruining that house. We'll be able to upend that industry as well. You will have perfect information and homes that can alert, that can speak, and that can heal themselves. So if we look at retail's another good one. Probably people have seen the concept of Bluetooth beacons, these little beacons that can go around and they can know effectively micro-presence. You're walking by based on your cell phone. And I think there's some fantastic examples of that for personalization that will help traditional retail compete in an online world. And so a good example of that is actually yesterday or the day before, our cat was out of cat food. And anybody who has a cat knows you don't deny a cat food, or they will start looking at you with that they're going to eat you set of eyes. And so my wife said, you got to go and get the cat food. And I was like, all right, I got a bunch of things to get. I'll pick up some cat food as well. Came home all proud of myself because I dealt with a bunch of things and dropped the big bag of cat food on the kitchen floor and said, here you go. And she's like, that's cat litter, because I'm not a good looker or reader, as it turns out. And so, the example there is, why couldn't my order, what I needed, have been at that store and prevented me from walking out of that store with a big bag of cat litter and actually been the hero that I wanted to be? So, healthcare and wellness. There's a lot of people here probably wearing a wearable. I was just having a conversation with some folks about wearables. These are great connected devices, and we already see really magical and interesting ways that people are connecting these devices into a platform like SmartThings. They're playful ways. So if you think about this stat, obesity is 1% of our entire GDP. As you look at like healthcare costs and maintenance and stuff like that, that's amazing, right? That's a huge amount. And so people have already done things like, hey, I'm going to take my step tracker, my Fitbit or my Jawbone, and I'm going to tie it into the SmartThings platform, and I'm just going to not unlock my front door until I get my steps for the day, right? And those are silly and those are playful. But I also had a conversation with a large health insurance provider, and one of their comments was, you know what? Behavioral indicators are actually pre-indicators to health problems than biometric data. And what they were talking about was elder care. So there's going to be 72 million seniors in 2020 in the United States. And I love my parents. My dad might be watching. Hey, Dad, I stack wood just as well as ever. Thanks for all the lessons growing up. I don't want him living with me, right? So the longer that he can live at home on his own, the better. And so as you think about aging in place and how these technologies can help make life easier for an aging senior, but also provide that behavioral indication. Did grandma get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and not come out? Did grandma get up and actually hit her routines like she should have? Open the medicine cabinet here, open the door here, or not? Those are going to be pre-indicators and a lot less expensive indicators than some of the biometric data that comes out of this space. So it's an area where there's a tremendous amount of innovation in the connected world. So government, we're based in Washington, D.C. as a company, so this one is near and dear to our hearts. Looks like the slide is, there we go. So a government that works and makes your life more pleasant. I will say this, and I'll call them out here, and you can tweet this. If you walk past the Environmental Protection Agency, one of the government buildings in Washington, D.C., in the middle of the night, all of their lights are on. They are burning energy in the middle of the night. So just solve that, do better energy usage, do better efficiency in government, and we'll all be happier. But smart cities will have crime reduction, they'll have less litter, they'll have garbage cans that connect up and basically say, I'm ready to be emptied, and they will be more efficient as a result. So the last one here that I'd put out there is enterprise as a place for people to think about innovation in a connected world. We certainly believe there's a consumerization of IT factor happening in the Internet of Things, that consumers will experience more and more connected devices in their home life and bring those into their work life. And I know enterprise can be scary. How would I know how to ensure that the vibration of a train's track is going to be X, Y, and save somebody so much money? We actually sat inside a Fortune 5 company's office with our kind of SmartThings stuff, and they're like, you know what? You should make a SmartThings kit for oil rigs. We were like, you guys don't have a oil rig solution? And they don't. They're looking for innovation across all of enterprise. And this is going to be massive. It's going to be food transport. It's going to be spoilage, increased yields. And so generally people believe 46% of the global economy can benefit from the industrial internet. And that's going to be huge. It's going to help us feed the world. It's going to help us deal with population growth. So solve big problems. So this is a tweet from a couple days ago, April 19th. Usually I would finish here, and if I had a fake microphone or a real microphone, I would throw it down and kind of walk off the stage, because we started the company with a flood, and we get these tweets all the time where we have helped solve that problem. And we're very proud of that. We see those all the time. Granted, we also get tweets with people who are less than happy with us. But when we solve this problem, when we influence somebody's life, it's compelling, it's motivating, it's what drives us as entrepreneurs to solve these problems. And usually I would stop here, but I also said that a good entrepreneurial story starts with drinking some scotch. So one of our users submitted this video recently, and we'll see if it'll play.
I just wanted to show you some of the things I've done with my SmartThings collection. Right now you're seeing my Scotch cabinet. I have it hooked up to a SmartThings motion sensor, as well as a SmartThings outlet and a Sonos music player. I'm just going to show you what happens as I walk towards the Scotch cabinet. So as you can hear, the angels start to sing, as well as all the lighting on the inside turn on. I got a lot of glass shelving in there, as well as mirrors on the tops and bottom. I display my Scotch bottles, as well as my shot glass.
We'll let him be done, but. So that's what we're all about at SmartThings. We invite you to join us, help us solve big problems with the connected world, collaborate with us on what those additional big problems are, feel our joy and feel our pain. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Give it up for Andrew Brooks. A little bit more. If you have questions, please feel free to tweet those with the hashtag Big Omaha, or if you have a question, please come up to a microphone right now. We'd love to have you ask a question. Looks like we have one right here. Go for it, man.
Sure, thanks. Hi. You mentioned applications with government, and I'd be interested to hear some of the actual examples that you might have seen, especially on the local level for government.
Yeah, I think most of the live examples that you're seeing are definitely at the local level. It's very, very much smart city focused, where you're dealing a lot with energy usage, where energy usage should happen, monitoring for crime patterns, monitoring literally for, there's a city in Spain that has, a bunch of connected garbage cans that basically make route collection more efficient. So a lot of it is tied to how do you make municipal services more efficient and more effective? How do you save money in that municipality by driving down inefficiency that lack of information and lack of connected data drives. So those are the ones that exist out there today and certainly are going to be built upon.
I'm curious a little bit about being based in DC. Typically, we don't hear a lot of stories of folks operating, creating businesses out of DC. Of course, we know they do exist there. Is that a little bit different environment for you to build your business?
Yeah, it's it turns out there are smart people in many places in the country, and we have our share in Washington D.C. A lot of times you have to get some of the technology resources to stop building bombs and actually focus on something a little bit more productive in Washington D.C. But we love it there. It's a fantastic community. It's a very, very diverse. It's a very culturally diverse community. You get a lot of movement through as the city turns over politically, and I think that helps us think, already not in an insular U.S.-based fashion, but how are we going to do things globally? What will global look like for SmartThings? And that's been very helpful to us. So I think that's going to be a benefit to us in launching across the world and helping solve problems across the world.
Great. We have another question over here.
Thank you very much. You talked about a lot of different areas to focus on. Mm-hmm. How do you prioritize as SmartThings where you actually spend your time?
Yeah, so we right now, SmartThings, the product, we focus on the home. We are definitely looking to solve how do you make a smart home, how do you turn a home into a smart home? And for us, a smart home makes you feel more secure, it gives you more peace of mind, it makes you more efficient and saves you money, gives you a little more convenience, and ultimately it's fun and playful. There's a lot of creative things you can do to put your personality into a smart home. So our energy is very much focused on the home today as a company and what you would find in the SmartThings consumer product, and that's why the SmartThings platform as a development environment, we call it the people's platform, and what we mean by that is it's an open platform. We want innovation on it, so a lot of those areas I'd encourage any entrepreneur who wants to solve a problem in that space, reach out to us because we will help in any way we can to make that a reality.
To me, one of the potential barriers for you guys is the cost of those devices, like
Sure.
the garbage can example, having a sensor in each one. Have you encountered that problem, and how have you gone about overcoming it?
Yeah, I think certainly the good news is Moore's Law and technology acceleration is on our side. Devices are getting easier and less expensive to produce. The radios that make a device connected in a lot of these standards can be available for under $5, under $3. So making a new device be connected is increasingly inexpensive. I certainly think time is going to be on our side, and we would love to see scale mechanics kick in across basic sensors, which would help drive those costs down. But agree with you, it's one of those areas where we want to get to a point where for $10 you can put various sensors around your house that would last for 2 years on batteries and provide a ton of information and a ton of value. And that trend is happening. It's certainly, as you look at the history of the cost of these devices over time, they continue to come down and will continue to do so.
So I'm a student at Williamsville College, and this year I helped to found a club called the Tech Club, where tech stands for Teach Everyone Coding and Hardware. So we're trying to work in this kind of space and examine what open hardware can do for students and entrepreneurship at our school. So one of my questions is, among SmartThings and its competitors, how do you view the relative roles of platform and manufacturer, and how does that ultimately lead to a centralizing or a democratizing effect for the Internet of Things?
Yeah, I think you mentioned open hardware, which is a great topic. I think you're seeing now what we would call the democratization of hardware development. It's evidenced when you go to any of the crowdfunding sites like a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo and see the number of hardware-based innovations that are happening where new hardware devices don't have to come out of the big industrials any longer, that entrepreneurs can actually successfully create new hardware. And largely that's because of things like open hardware. It's things like 3D printing, robotic manufacturing, where with a good idea in a couple of weeks, you can have a physical device in your hand that works. I think increasingly you're going to have manufacturers, scaled manufacturers, who are going to learn how to take those entrepreneurs and bring them through a process from ideation and initial innovation, which can happen very rapidly, into what does it mean to actually have a scaled, predictable, reproducible, and low-cost product. And so I think the best the best manufacturers out there are going to invest in how they actually cultivate entrepreneurial work. And we're seeing that every single day today as new device manufacturers come to us and say, hey, we want this to work on SmartThings. We have partners in the manufacturing space that we can point them to who have those sorts of programs and will help guide them through that pace of innovation and that pace of scale.
So I dabble in this space, mostly retail and industrial, and you gave some good examples about like an oil rig and things like that, very specialized uses. When it comes to the consumer side and the smart house, everybody, like you said, wants to do things differently and wants to track different things. How do you get around the large kind of setup process, get it where it is? I mean, I think that's one reason why security systems are so bad. They just said, all we're going to do is this, and it's going to work exactly this way and only this way. How do you, the personalization, how does that?
Yeah, I think certainly we have discovered and we believe that there are a core set of use cases that nearly everyone can benefit from, and that oftentimes those use cases, everybody has a front door, right? Everybody has an entry and exit to their home and can benefit from knowing, is it open, is it closed, was it left open, did it open when I didn't expect it? And those core use cases in things like door entryways and lights and switches and climate control and things like that bubble up underneath this concept of a home that's more secure, a home that gives me more peace of mind, a home that is more convenient or efficient. And so our job is to identify, what is that 20% rule that appeals to 80% of users and make it really, really simple to get started there. And by simple, I mean 10 minutes and a couple $100 and you're solving a life problem, and then guide people through an expansion and a growth into new use cases that might be core use cases, or things like that connected pet can because I just don't want to overfeed the dog. So you start with the core that resonates with everybody, and then you guide them and educate them through additional use cases over time.
Let's do one last question from the internet, excuse me, from Alex. How do you convince non-technical people to adopt smart home devices when they struggle with computers or other devices, or do you at all even try to convince them?
Yeah, I mean, I think, hey, do you want to know when your kids got home from school safely? That doesn't require a technical person to appreciate why that's important to them, so you have to appeal at the emotional level. We all have passion about our home, passion about our security, passion about our loved ones, and you appeal at that level and make it very, very simple to get that benefit out of a technology like SmartThings. You make it seem like it's not a technology activity. It's just how I'm personalizing my home and making my home act around me. And I think we will continue to invest in making that easier. But at the same time, we know there's a whole bunch of those use cases that appeal to everyone today.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Andrew Brooks.